without further ado, I'm gonna just introduce my friend and compatriot, Catharine Bramkamp, who is up next here.
Mhm.
Catharine is a published poet, podcaster, workshop retreat leader, and author of 21 books. She holds an MA in creative writing from Sonoma State University and a BA in English from UC Santa Barbara and a professional certificate from SSU, specifically for social media. She teaches for Sierra College and the University of Hawaii. She currently serves as a board member for the Nevada County Arts Council, Grass Valley Chamber of Commerce, an initiative for orchestral innovation. She needs to be stopped before she volunteers again. Please help me in giving a warm welcome to Catharine. And you can always use your fun reaction emojis to, there we go, to clap. How
Thank
we
you,
doing
Ingrid.
virtual?
Hi, and I just want to know if I can share my screen. If you could
Yeah,
pop that up for me because I have this all on PowerPoint because that's how I operate with our Ollie classes. So you don't have to look at me the entire time. Some
you
people
should
find
just
that
be
a
able
little,
to you should just be able to share. Do you not have that option?
let's see. There we go. Thank you.
Perf.
So let's just do the portion of screen. Dun, ta-da. There we go. And I will let you do all the admitting and all that kind of good stuff, right?
Oh
Okay.
yeah, you don't have to worry about that.
Okay. Good. Good, 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 good. Awesome. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the final session of our wonderful, exciting conference day. I am blown away by the talent that has preceded me, and I hope I can measure up. That's my big goal for this afternoon. We are going to do some writing, so go ahead and keep those great notebooks that you started out with Debbie this morning, first thing this morning, open, because I'm going to ask you a few questions and give you a little time to consider them and write about them, because we're going to talk about authentic promotion. And when I say authentic promotion, it's almost critical now to be able to really drill down and understand who your book is for, why you wrote it, what your purpose was, and where it needs to go, because the choices are infinite, unfortunately. I know that sounds like a good thing, but it's really not a good thing. Your choices are infinite, and once you've published your book, the other half of the work starts, which is also sometimes can be challenging news. So I'm gonna hopefully help you turn your social media and your promotional efforts into something that looks less like dodgeball and more like synchronized swimming. So so we all subscribe to 100 bazillion helpful blogs that tell us how to promote our books, how to find our audience, how to go after the next shiny thing. If it's not TikTok, then it's Instagram. If it's not Instagram, then you need to be on Snapchat. If you're not on Snapchat, then you need to go on to Reddit, which is like the thing. It took down the GameStop stocks, right? And as writers, and I would say most of us here are more writers than necessarily promotional experts, it's really hard to get into the promotional world. It's hard to get your head around it. It's certainly hard to be enthusiastic about it. And I only can say is I feel your pain, because this has got to be one of the most challenging pieces of publishing and promoting our books. Now, if you are pre-published and you're thinking, I'm not published yet, I just started writing, I'm here to learn how to do better, with my craft and my skills. Actually, if you go through this, go through some of my ideas, I can help you set yourself up for success once that book gets published. A lot of what we need to do to promote our books happens before we actually publish the book. So either way, this is going to help. I can either help you pivot and move yourself from your dodgeball focused event or focused efforts to something that's more coordinated so that you feel like you're moving very easily through the waters of promotion. So that's my goal for you. So how do we manage to do this? What is authentic promotion? So I will tell you what authentic promotion is, because we come to conferences for answers, not for more questions. Thank you very much. So your promotion is often and should be based on what the purpose of your book is. Now, I'm going to talk about purpose. In fact, I'm going to go up here for purpose. So the purpose of your book is pretty much everything but money. Okay? Money is a bad purpose. Money has always been a bad purpose. Anybody who's read any novel or seen a Greek tragedy knows that money is not a good purpose. What is your purpose? Maybe it's outreach. Maybe it's to enhance your reputation. If it's actually both fiction and nonfiction, this applies to both. It could be to change the world. We talked about how poetry can be the voice for other cultures. It can be the voice to help change and make change. So maybe your purpose is political. Maybe your purpose is to convey and express your own timely insights and your ideas about how the world should shift. There are so many authors who we are known for one kind of writing, like Sinclair Lewis, who's like, okay, we're going to talk about mainstream or muckraking. We're going to talk about political ideas. And then they're the ones who also write about they write about the future. They write about Sinclair Lewis's book "It Can't Happen Here" is shot to the bestseller list because he writes about a character who is very, very, very close to a former current leader, and it's uncanny. But that's what authors get to do. So maybe your purpose is to say, "Wake up! This is what could happen. It can happen here," as Sinclair Lewis said. Maybe your purpose is to just be an author. And that is good to know. Is your purpose to get your book on a shelf? Is your purpose to brag at Thanksgiving that you are a published author and your brother-in-law is not? Those are all brilliant purposes. So what we're going to do is we're going to think about some of the purposes of your book. I'm going to give you a few minutes to write this down on. I'll time it on your behalf. So let's take about 4 minutes and think about, so until we get to the top of the hour, let's write about what is the purpose of your book, taking into account some of these other items. And I put this back up so that you can see some of the ideas. So 4 minutes, let's write down the purpose of your book, your poetry collection, your nonfiction. What's the purpose? Go. Okay, 2 minutes. We're halfway through your purpose list. Okay. So welcome back. You have your list with your purposes. If you guys, I don't know if anybody wants to throw out their purpose onto the chat, you certainly can do that. Some of the purposes that I came up with off the top of my head, and this is after running a workshop for the last month, your purpose could be to illuminate a situation, to share your story, to help others through a journey that you came out on the other side of, to talk about health issues, to solve for X, to meet girls. That would be the Grant Faulkner purpose of NaNoWrite More. Oh, I love this. So inspiring young girls to be empowered and live magical lives. What an excellent purpose. That's wonderful. Give people escapism during a tough year. Escape and entertainment are good purposes. The next, okay, I'll see if there's any more. Those are great examples. Yeah, to tell the story. Many of us have been writing memoirs, or we write about relatives. We're writing like historical, I would say kind of historical memoir, but we're taking letters from family members. We're putting things together to get a better picture of the past. We are giving a voice to someone who, up until you got their letters, did not have a voice. That is a very powerful purpose and a very good creative project, and a very good thing and way to be. And I'm doing a whole class for OLLI, for lifelong learning, starting on the 17th, 18th of this month, on that very subject, where there's a whole group of women who I've studied now, whose sole purpose was to support someone else's art, to support another artist and give that artist a voice and exposure. And through that, their lives also improved or became something that was very different than what it started as. So lots of purposes. So you've got your purpose, and we're back to money is not a good purpose. Now, think about within the purpose, who is or who needs to connect with your purpose. In other words, you have a purpose like to save the planet, I like self-reflection impacts our relationships. We have, I'm going to open up the chat just a little bit bigger so that I can see some of these, because you guys are good, but then I didn't expect anything less. Save the planet. I like that. I think that's a good purpose. Increase love in the world. Tell the story. So now you've got your purpose, and you might have more than one. So there could be a number of them. So pick the top one just for the exercise during this workshop. So you pick your target. What is the main intention for your book? What is your main intention? And once you have that, and it can be as broad as save the planet, save the world. All right. Now look at who needs to hear it, or who wants to know more about it. So in other words, by focusing and understanding and really drilling down to what your book's purpose is, to entertain, to send out a message, etc., what your next step is to say, who now needs to hear this? Now, this isn't necessarily you being a dictator. So, because we know how well that goes. If we've ever had children or a loved one or friends who don't let us get away with anything, you can't just walk in and say, okay, I've decided that you need to hear this, because they will never listen to you for the rest of your existence and of theirs. So what you want to identify is who possibly could learn from what you have to offer, who is aligned with your purpose. In other words, if you're going to save the world, to whom do you want to send this message? Who do you think needs to hear what you have to say? So, for instance, let me get, there you go. So let's say that you wrote a YA novel about relationships. Okay. Who is that audience? Are you writing a book that the parent, a 35-year-old mother, would want to pick up for her daughter? Or did you write a book that the young adult herself, 12, 13, 15 years old, would pick out of a range of books, either on an Amazon screen or in the independent bookstore? Let's hope she's in the bookstore. How is she going to know about your book? How is she going to pull that book out? What drives her to that book? Think about what your audience needs. Does your book feed that need? Because that audience is how you manage and work your social media and work your promotion. So you can see that if you know who needs to hear your message, who is the person who needs to hear what you have to say, or who needs to be entertained? Are they bored CEOs who have no place to go and nothing to do? Are they people who can't travel anymore, and so they would love to have your book about traveling because they want to escape? Do they want to learn about holistic healing? Do they have an interest in reading crystals? There's all sorts of, obviously there's all sorts of subjects, there's all sorts of books. Your goal is to narrowcast this down so that you can speak directly to the people who will most benefit from your book, and of course will buy your book, because that's what essentially we're working with, right? Is that we want people to purchase our books and we want them to benefit from them. If we focus more on the benefits, we're going to do a better job. And it's going to be more fun for us because it's going to come from our hearts and not from our brains. And that's where we can get in trouble. It's like, well, I need to get my numbers. I need this many people to buy the book so that I can be a success. I need over 200 book sales is average for any book. Yes, 200 copies. I'm going to go out and I'm going to blast this all over the internet, and then everybody will buy it because it's a book for everybody. So if you've ever heard one of your friends say that, it's like, oh, well, my book is going to appeal to everybody. As you know, after these last few minutes, that's not the case. And you don't actually need it to be the case. Even the most popular books, the James Pattersons, the Nora Roberts, the I want to say Child Hassan, but that's not right. Carl Hassan. The popular books are not popular with everybody, right? All we need is some rabid fans for whom the book speaks, to whom the book speaks, and then we go from there. So you want to find your unique audience. How do you do that? So you know the purpose of the book. Now, part of what you need to do, your next step, is to tap into what your audience may resonate with. And what I have found is that when we're having conversations with potential readers, or when we are putting ourselves out into the promotional world, so to speak, the best way to do that is to be as authentic as we can. It's not about being, in fact, it's anything but being super slick. It's not about being really super professional. And in fact, that doesn't work as well anymore. Having, having the big band, having, beautiful backgrounds, professional actors, having all of this production value that very often slows us down when we think about doing promotion or speaking on video or any of this, right? In the last year, we have seen that most, even our professionals, have really scaled back. If you watch a talk show now, they don't have their set anymore because they can't go on set. They don't have their band anymore. They funnel in the band, and there's more squares, just like what we have right here. So the barriers are much smaller, but the goal is still to connect with your viewers, knowing that it's a smaller group, but it doesn't have to be a tiny group, 10,000 people, 100,000 people, that's it. I know that sounds like a lot, but it's a lot less than saying I need 96 million views or I need 96 million followers. It's very easy to game the system. People who you have, stars who have 96 million followers, easy to buy. Very easy to buy, very easy to get the, you can buy the likes, you can go to Fiverr and buy reviews for your books. So when I see books that say, 90, what was it, like over 1,500 reviews on, on Amazon, and I'm thinking, no. There's not that many people making reviews, because if you think of one review for every 100 people, all you need now are 100 reviews and you've got your 10,000 fans. Reviews are hard. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but seriously, you can buy them, you can fake them. If you have enough money to throw at something like this, great. But that's not what we're talking about here. What you want to do, what I have decided to do, and I think what most people really do want, is a real connection. We want to connect with our readers. We want to connect with our audience. That's how, that's where we're going to draw our energy, and that's how we're going to sell books or workshops or whatever your business. So I work with women and men who create books to help bolster their business. So they write nonfiction, and that helps their business grow. But all of that can be worthless if you're not doing it from a sincere place, if you're not being authentic. And I think that saves us. Because if I take all of that fake stuff off the table, if I say, okay, no, you don't need to buy reviews, you don't want to buy likes, think of that. It's kind of like paying people to be your friend when you were in the 3rd grade. Remember how well that went? It's not about, I think it's not about volume, but I think it is about quality. So it's not quantity, it's quality. That's what we're going to go for. So think about, what was your inspiration for writing the book? What did you discover when you wrote the book? What led you to the purpose of your book? So it could, was there ever in your journey that led you to the end product and creating the end product, or maybe you're in the throes of it, which is awesome. Did you ever have moments of pure shock? How long did it take you to recover? How did you recover? Did you do it alone? Did you recover under your own steam, or did you have help? Who helped you? How did they talk to you so that you could understand their help? How did you get where you are going? Because what you're going to create is a way of connecting with your audience that goes past the book. You're now creating that personal connection, that authentic connection. So let's take about 4 minutes again and think about what are some of the pieces of your own journey, your own inspirational story that you recall, that you can make just some notes and say, oh, that's right, I need to revisit this, or I need to revisit that. So tap into your inspirational story, and I'll give you about 4 minutes. So at 3:18, we will come back and see where that leads you. Halfway, 2 more minutes. Okay. So and again, you might not want to share, and that's cool. But did anything, you can just say, you can write in the chat, did anything come up that was surprising, or that you looked at what you wrote and said, oh, wow, I did have a journey. I do have some processes to share. I do have more, and this is what happens. I have more than what I wrote in the book. Oftentimes when we write these lovely, 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 fabulous books, we leave a lot on the table, especially if you have a developmental developmental editor who says, you know, you don't need to put that in, you don't need to put that in, and you don't need to put that in. So all of your world building hit the editing floor, and you had to start your novel with like a point of action, because that's what you needed to do. And you said, oh, but I did all this good work. Sometimes the good work is what you use when you are blogging, creating social media posts, and talking with interested fans. So nothing that you write really goes to waste. You can use so much of it, and it will enhance your work. It'll enhance your conversations. And the more real you can be, the more honest you can be about what your process is or what your journey is, the better off you're going to be. And the more your readers will respect you and want to follow you and go after everything that you've written. And we have authors like that in our lives, right? As soon as you see that author's name pop up with a new book, you're in, right? You reserve it, you buy it ahead of time. You tell the bookseller that, you know, when this book comes out, call me. I'm going to come and pick up my hard copy. That's what you want your fans to do. You want them to wait for everything that you do. So as soon as you publish something, they rush to buy it. And you accomplish that by being really connected with them and really honest with them. So once you've figured out, where your people, who your people are. So let's say once you figured out, you know, who needs to hear your message, and there could be separate groups, by the way. So it's not going to be just one place, right? But once you figure that out, then you need to identify their hunter or gatherer hunting ground. Once you figure out where they're congregating, then you start making offerings. So let me unpack that a little bit. So let's say you have written a fabulous book that is basically a business book, right? Let's say it's talking about your expertise. You're talking about what you've learned. You want to share it with a younger group. You want to be a mentor. So you say, aha, my purpose is to mentor other entrepreneurs in this particular field. Okay, great. Where are they? So you do some research. And the reason that I don't have like a whole list for you is that the social media outlets shift and change on a monthly basis. And that is part of what makes it a little more challenging. So for instance, Twitter has decided it has a soul after all, and they are trying to get sort of back in the groove. What do we do? How do we make sure that it's a safer, nicer, more polite outlet? Because TikTok has been slaying it. So Twitter has to re-engage, essentially. Are you on TikTok? Is there a way to monetize this, or do you care? Do you need to just do 3 silly dances and you are good to go? And if you do, is that engagement? So you want to look at what are the possibilities. So if I were writing a business book for younger people who need a mentor, and your book and you can be that mentor for them, probably want to go on LinkedIn. That's where they're going to be. Or maybe they are, or maybe they're on Reddit. So you go into these outlets, you go into these channels, and you start to talk. You start to engage. I know, right? You start to make an offering. And what you're offering is Hey, I noticed that you were talking about ABC. I've had some experience with ABC. Let me give you some information rather than advice. You don't want to come off, too terrible. Or you're on Twitter and you follow certain hashtags. So one place that is great to check into if you are pre-published actually is Twitter. I would focus on one segment of Twitter, which is hashtag agents, hashtag what I'm looking for. There's a whole subsystem in Twitter right now where most agents from larger organizations and independents definitely are talking with authors about their books and expressing what they're looking for. It's a great place to go. The hashtag in this case then helps you filter what you're looking at. So if you just do a hashtag of maybe you follow an agent, hashtag, hashtag Susie Jones, or you follow a, hashtag looking for genre fiction. You're going to be able to look that up once you get into Twitter. What are some of the popular places to go? And start, Twitter does not like different opinions. No, they do not. That's why I would stay away from that segment and go into the segments that are, it's like going into a subreddit or going into a separate room. So let's say you're at a cocktail party and everything's swirling around you and suddenly everyone starts to talk politics and you're pretty fatigued about the whole subject and you find one other person and you know where the beer is. Go to that room and have just that single conversation with just that person. And that's what you can do with Twitter. You can move yourself away from the general mayhem and you can have a civil conversation off to one side. You can also do this with Facebook groups. So let's say that the broader context of Facebook, with all of its ads, with all of its paid posts, is a little overwhelming. And maybe you've decided to just be off of it because darn, it's just not a space that you're feeling, not a space you're really into. You can, however, look at groups. You can look at following specific pages, not just your feed with your friends, okay? Because that's one group that has been historically manipulated by quite a bit. Who knew? Okay, people knew, but they were on Twitter and no one was listening to them. So you have that world of Facebook. You can, again, drill down, like going back over to the room with the beer and just talk to 4 or 5 people in a group. And the groups can be, I belong to groups that are like, writers, hashtag authors. There'll be groups that a specific author might set up. I run a program called Writing from the Queen's Seat, which is based on authentic writing as well as authentic promotion, just like this is a part of what we talk about. And we have a Queen's Seat group. We have a Queen's Seat page. That's where our people can go, and it's not closed per se. The group is closed, but the page isn't. But it's a more moderated, calmer place to go with this, just talking about that subject. So maybe you just follow 2 or 3 subjects. It's like with LinkedIn, maybe you just follow a few hashtag subjects, writing, or what focused business you're in, or you've targeted young people who are looking to get into engineering and you happen to have that engineering book that you want to use to help them, but also you can help them just by talking to them. So that's what I mean when we talk about identifying who you need to talk to and then just talking to them. Because this isn't for us as writers, the idea of being everything to everybody is flipping crazy making. And it doesn't work. What it does is it gives you a headache, perhaps a heart attack, but it doesn't get your book any further or any more read. We want to drill that down and just talk to the people you want to talk to. This does 2 things. it helps you feel more human, and it helps your readers or your potential readers, your followers, feel more human. That's what we want. We want to have a conversation with people, not acrimonious, and you can choose to set the tone. And I recommend non-acrimonious because, again, I'm very tired of the omnosity and the hatred. I don't want it anymore. So I'm going to look for other things that reinforce what I want in my life. And the thing about social media, of course, is if it starts going south, if it starts going the wrong direction, you can reel it in, you can reject it, you can take a hiatus, you can control this world more maybe than you think. So that's your goal, is to have this conversation, this back and forth. Now, we got you into the conversation. What is the point? And I think that's a good question to ask. So we're having these lovely conversations, and it's all terribly entertaining, yay. But what really does that do? I feel this is a good question to ask. So what has been found, and I could be wrong because I haven't checked the statistics in the last 25 minutes. What the goal of social media is, that engagement that you create, is to encourage those followers to really follow you. In other words, you want them to become subscribers. You want them to say to you, the author, all right, I've been following you on Twitter. It's pretty cool. I'd like to know more, and I'd like it pushed to me. That's your newsletter. What I have studied and what has come back on social media sites devoted to social media is that people do not make purchases directly from social media. Everyone is trying. So on Pinterest, there is a buy button that they're still working out. There's Facebook. They want you to go to their marketplace, and it's been good and bad. So it's been a little rocky, but with the marketplace. Twitter is trying it. LinkedIn does it to a certain extent. All of these outlets very much want you to say, oh, pretty and shiny, click and hit the buy button. What psychologists have discovered is that the average user, and we're all going to just deal with average users, not the super hyped up users. The average user does not make that buying connection just in that one link, just in that one page. So if I see, let's say I belong to BookBub. So here's a good example. It's pushed to me, so I get it in my email. I open up the email, and there's a list of books curated according to what the algorithm thinks I am going to like. Fair enough. I read it and I say, oh yeah, that book would be really interesting. And I click on the book. That does not purchase the book. That just brings me to my Amazon account, where I read more about the book. I usually read, a few reviews. I don't trust all of them, as we pointed out. It's like trusting all the Yelp reviews, and you have to kind of read them and say, no, sounds like their mother wrote that. I go to the Amazon page. From there, I make the purchase. So there is a page between the pushed item, or let's say the Twitter link, or the Pinterest board. There's a page. So in Pinterest, if you're interested in what the Pinterest ad is, because I've run ads on Pinterest, they're very helpful. You click on the ad, that sends you to another page that tells the reader a little bit more about whatever it is they clicked on, and then from there they click buy. So there needs to be a barrier. It works better. So your barrier, because it's easier, I'm going to give you the easy version. What you want to do is to say, hey, to your fans, you want to know more about moi. You want to know more about what I have to say. And you can tell them, I write a newsletter. My newsletters go once a month. You probably subscribe to some that are once a week, which I find overwhelming for me to produce. Sometimes I find it overwhelming for me to receive. Some people send newsletters like every other day. They have a larger staff than I do. And this is my staff. It's just a pen. I think that's maybe too much. I think people do get fatigued, and you need to look again at your audience. So if your audience is of a certain demographic, that too will affect how often you reach out to them. So that's just the numbers thing right there. But your goal is to get subscribers to your newsletter, because it's in the newsletter that they actually will click and purchase something. That's the final ask. That's the final close for the sale. So you've talked to people on the internet. Everything is going along beautifully. Maybe you've talked to them, you've seen them 3 or 4 times coming up, and then you say, hey, I'm doing an offer. Here's a free PDF of my top 10 hits for how to be an engineer in a global environment. I will send that to you in exchange for your email so that you get my newsletter. And you don't need to be coy about it. You don't need to couch it in any kind of phraseology. You simply say, and this is what I do. I will send you a newsletter once a month. It will have this much content, and I will never sell your names or your emails. If you use programs like a MailChimp, Constant Contact, something that's sanctioned, that's more commercial, they have a lot of built-ins that will help you. So they have the unsubscribe built in. They will make sure that you're not spamming. They will make sure you have permission to send. All of that will be taken care of for you. So even though you have to press a lot of buttons that say yes, I won't do this, or yes, they are, that protects you. So you want them in your newsletter. Because once they're in your newsletter, now you have a very tight, very focused, rabid fans. What do you put in the newsletter then? Well, you obviously are going to put in buy my book. Okay. The newsletter is probably the only space where you can just flat out say, oh, buy my book. Because buy my book in any other environment, on any other channel, is not going to work. So LinkedIn posts that just says, oh, buy my book, no. Twitter posts that say, oh, buy my book, no. It's a turnoff. If you do it enough, no one will ever buy your book again, because they'll recognize your name for the wrong reasons. What you do want to do is to give it away. What you're going to do is you're going to give information away. You could give quotes from your book. You can say, here are the top 10 pieces of advice, or the top 5. If you're on Twitter, you don't have as much room, right? Here's the top 5 things that I've learned what to do. Here are 4 things that I find easy that you may not know about. YouTube is packed with videos of people doing projects that they think are easy that we have no clue about. Okay. So if you know something, and you can do screenshots of this too, if you know something that's part of what your book is, make a YouTube video, post it up. Someone will find it and say, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to know how to do this. That is what's going to get you that connection. Yeah. And you write fan fiction. It's good point from Rachel. Thank you. You can give away your book. Absolutely. You can give away, I think, give away pieces of it, or again, kind of the side notes. So let's say you wrote about, your fiction book is about coming of age. And maybe you wrote it based in the 70s, because maybe by some strange coincidence, that's when you came of age. So you have a lot of information about that time, realizing that your readers grew up in the 90s. So that's a 20-year gap that you get to exploit. So maybe what you do then is you say, oh, let's do a whole Pinterest board on cool, weird ass stuff from the 70s. Maybe you make posts like, did you know that the 70s did this, did that? And you link to subscribe to my blog or subscribe to my newsletter to learn more about the 70s. Or you say, if you want to know more about the 70s, here's a link to my book. So you don't say, buy my book. You say, here's a link to my book. You might be interested. Do not be offended if that's not what it takes. It takes getting the newsletter. It takes drilling down to the next level. So let's go back to the 70s. You've got I just named two audiences. You may want to target readers between a certain age who grew up in the 70s, who might find it entertaining to return. And you have a group who did not, maybe their parents grew up in the 70s. They're just discovering it because now it's campy and it's kind of cool and they're wearing their bell bottoms and you're thinking, I can't believe they came back. And that group, you're going to find them someplace else and you're going to talk to them differently. So and yes, that can start getting a little overwhelming, but maybe you just divide it up. And, in March and April, you're going to talk to one group and you're going to focus on just the social media for that. You're going to gather up their newsletter subscriptions. You're going to gather up subscriptions. Then you're going to go talk to the next group. You're going to gather up their subscriptions. You're going to create and then create a newsletter. Even as I say that, that's burdensome. Everybody's going to get the same newsletter as what I would recommend you start with. So as you get into these conversations, then what you will find is more and more you'll see where you can go. What kind of questions can you ask? What can you do? If you feel like you don't have much to say in your newsletters or in your social media, think about what got you where you are. What got you to writing your book? What were the steps that got you there? So you not only have your expertise in your field, you have historical research in your field. So I have a number of clients who write historical fiction, and they've got all this material and they want to put it all in the book. And I made them take it all out of the book because it was just too much. But I have them keep it because now they've got something to say on their website. Now they've got something to say in their newsletters. And now they've got extra things that they can discuss that's not, and they don't need to pull out of the book. If you don't have that, and I'll answer that question. It took me a minute to read more of it. If you do not have a lot of extra material, or you're just starting out and you're thinking, all right, what do I say? Create a newsletter around the first chapter of your book, or the third chapter, or the fifth chapter. Take sections out of the book and share them. Rachel made a good point. On the internet, we often give away a lot of our book. We give away a lot of the material. We give away a lot of the information, because even when we do it, even when we give it all away, people will still buy the book. And it seems super counterintuitive, because you think, well, they just read it all for free on my blog. Why would they buy the book? Because the book is easier. They want it all in one place. I want it all in one place. I will read something for free for a year. And when the author finally says, oh, and by the way, I put this all together in a book, I am first up saying, I'm in, I'm buying it, because I don't want to go through all their blogs. I don't want to be on a screen anymore. I want to have their book. Ideally, I want to have them sign it. I will go listen to them speak. I'm all in. So you might follow Austin Kleon's blog. He writes Steal Like an Artist. And you think, all right, I've got all this information. I've got he just takes stuff from his 3 books all the time. That's what he does. He writes a weekly newsletter. You've got to do that. But I own his books. I like him. I want to support him. And I want his book. I do not want to cull through his blog listings to get the information I want. So even though that sounds like really weird thing, like giveaway, it's like, why would I give away my book? That's how you do it. You give away your book, because that helps you build those fans for your newsletter and get you your followers so that, yes, they will buy your book. So the question that Julia asked, do agents and publishers look at having newsletter and mailing lists the same way they look at social media followers? And the answer is yes, they do. So when you create, and this is why pre-published is handy to do this, all of this work as well. If you go to, so I went to a small publisher. I've had different publishers for different books. And one of the questions, or maybe actually most of the questions they ask is, how many Twitter followers do you have? How many Facebook followers do you have? How many followers, how many subscribers to your newsletter do you have? Because they're making choices, and this can be also the bad news, is that what agents and publishers are purchasing is your built-in audience. It's very lazy on their part, but it's simply part of what we're dealing with right now. So they want to know, and this is the only reason why they want to know who's following you, because they want to know how can you help them sell your book. And if you already have that up and running, that is in your favor. Now, the other question to this is, if you have 10,000 followers on any one of these platforms. So Julia, I think you could do like 5,000 Twitter followers and 5,000 LinkedIn followers, and that would create your numbers. It's a cumulative number. And I hope that answered that question. If you have 10,000 fans, let's say you've got a mailing list of 5,000, let's say you have a mailing list of 10,000, and you have fans who, as soon as you put a book out, will buy your book. So let's say you sell 5,000 books to 10,000 books. The irony here is that you sell 10,000 books and then a publisher says, wow, we'd really like to publish you because you've just sold 10,000 books and we want a piece of that. Frankly, at that point, you don't need them. That's the irony. Because if you are selling 10,000 ebooks, you're making a nice, tidy profit, because ebooks make more money for you than hard copies. So thank you for that, Rachel. So the irony right now is that if you're doing really well with your own promotion, suddenly you don't need a big publisher. You may not even need an agent. The other side of it is maybe you say, all right, I've got all these followers. They're really interested in my book. And I want to take it in a different direction, let's just say. Or maybe you're interested in a certain award or prize for your book, and the only way it will be recognized is through a certain level of publisher. Maybe you're fine where you are, and you're publishing your books and you're getting the attention, and it's on the shelf so you can brag to your brother-in-law, and you're good to go. So there we go. So there are a lot of outlets that can help you get your book out. And there's a lot of outlets that are easy for you as an individual to use. And that's what we're going for. What I hope for you is for you to be able to get your authentic voice heard and get your book into the hands of people who really need to hear what you have to say. Maybe they don't know it yet, but you know it. And so you're doing that authentic outreach that will get them pull them into you, let them be part of your village, part of your, we call it a queendom, but part of your cohort. Those are the people who are going to help promote your book. You're going to take your take your little self, and when we can finally leave the building, you're going to say, oh, my book has really been helpful for healers. That's been a group that's really resonated with my program or with my book. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to go to a healing conference, and I'm going to be a vendor there. That is specific and a much, much better use of your energy and focus than if you said, oh, I have a book, so I'm going to go to a book fair and I'm going to hang out with a whole bunch of other books, because that's a more general option. Now, if I have a book fair run by my friends, I'm going to go and support them. But I don't imagine I'm going to sell a lot, because there's a lot of competition for books. If I take the same book to a crystal fair, there's a whole lot of crystals, not a lot of books. So by focusing and understanding who you are, what your message is, and what your audience needs, you can make much more effective, much more targeted promotional decisions that will drive your reputation forward, as well as drive your book sales forward. And yes, it takes a village. And I'm going to give you guys 10 minutes for questions, and we just had a really good one. Book Baby. So Book Baby is helpful. I would, on any program that helps you publish your book, what my clients have done and what I have done is I break it down. So look and see, how, Book Baby is a bundler. So if you say, okay, I don't want to go to 99 Designs and get a cover. I don't want to upload it myself into Amazon. I don't know if I want to do Kindle or KDP, which is CreateSpace, Amazon, it's KDP. Or if I want to do Ingram Spark, if all of that becomes a little overwhelming, that's what Book Baby can do for you, is that they will bundle it for you for a price. Or maybe you can hire a book coach, and he or she can walk you through the program so that it's the best for you and it fits your budget. So there's two ways of going. Book Baby does have a good reputation. I follow them. So it's not like Author Services or it was the Evil Empire for the longest time. And I'm trying to think, maybe Rachel, you can remember. It's
Evil Empire?
Yeah, it was it was the early people who were publishing your book, but you were getting like 2 cents per book, and it would cost you a fortune to get it out there. Author House, that was it. Don't do those. Book Baby is fine. There's all sorts of organizations to help you. iUniverse is the other one. Thank you, Julia. It was iUniverse. I've used them. They're terrible. I just want to tell you that. So let's just pass that around. iUniverse, Author House. And I think there was one more, and it was the Evil Access. Evil Access. So that is, what we're talking about. Yeah, beware iUniverse and Author House. Thank you. And if there's any other questions, if you would like to get a free book, this is why we love conferences. We have a conference special for anybody who wants to get one of my current books, which is Writing from the Queen's Seat, which is about how to be authentic and reach the audience, just as what I talked about today. So it's actually linked. I'm not giving you a book that I wrote that is not appropriate. And you can get a free copy if you'd like, and it's at this HTTP, and I will highlight it and then drop it in so you guys can link. Thank you, Rachel, for doing that earlier. And just use the code Sierra for Sierra Writers Conference, and you can get a free PDF of our book. So any other questions? Thank you. I just want to thank you guys, and I want to thank Sierra Writers Conference for having me. I always, always, always love to listen to what the conference is doing, and listen to the brilliant people who are willing to come and speak, and I get so much out of it. So I hope you did too.
Well, thank you, Catherine. I mean, you've just been so generous with your time and the information and the links. And please, if there's questions, please let it roll in the chat, and we're happy to take them.
Yep, I'll be here. Yep.
We're getting a lot of thanks, and always good to hear from you.
Thank you, Julia.
Yeah, and be sure to copy that awesome link.
Yeah, copy the link. Sierra, my partner, set that up like at 4 this morning, and she emailed me while I was still in I was already listening to conference calls and the conference, and she said, "Hey, put this in for your talk." It's like, oh, okay, sure. So that's what we did at the last minute for you guys.
Well, maybe, Catherine, we have a little bit of time here at the end, and we don't have a ton of questions. Maybe you could talk about your own work a little bit, some of the fiction that you've been writing. I know you have a new book that came out somewhat recently.
I did. Oh, you're so kind to remember that. Yeah, so I'm a poet, nonfiction writer. This writing from the Queen Seat is nonfiction, but I'm also a fiction writer. And I have a book series out called the Real Estate Diva series. And it's a 5-book series. 2 of the books are set in Nevada County, and the 3 of them are set in Sonoma County. And it's a mystery novel, and it's funny. I found that just a second. It's there we go. So humorous books. Allison Little is the real estate agent, and she gets herself into all sorts of trouble. And the thing that I loved it, I wrote it when I was a real estate agent in Sonoma County, and I thought, oh, well, that'd be interesting. I wonder if anybody, I wonder what would happen if you found a dead body in one of your open houses. And I remember asking, or not asking, someone at a MLS, a multiple listing service meeting, asked me what I was doing, and I told her about, oh, I'm writing this book, and the character finds a body in her listing, haha. And the woman looked at me, she says, oh, have you been talking to Frank? I'm like, what? Apparently that's not as unusual as I thought. And so I did those a few years ago, and then I came up with when I was at a writing workshop in Tahoe. Woman was there. She wanted to reinvent herself. She had just spent 10 years caring for her elderly parents, and the elderly parents passed away, and she was trying to reinvent herself. She was wondering what to do. And I was really intrigued by that idea. What would happen if and when you needed to reinvent yourself at like 60, 65? What does that look like? I mean, we all talk about reinventing ourselves when we're 25, but what about older? And as I thought about that, I came up with, or she talked to me. So it depends on how you look at how characters come into your head and chatter until you write their story down. But I came up with Vic Gardner, who after 5 years of being a caregiver is suddenly cut loose. And she decides to return to her old stomping grounds, which in this case in the book is Venice, and in Egypt, Luxor specifically, and has all of these adventures that she has when she's 60 years old, when she's older, more mature, and frankly should know better. That book, After I'm Buried Alive, is out. That came out in March, because March 2020 was a great time to launch a book. Just ask any of us who did it. And I'm now working on the sequel, which is called Before the Death of Many Things. And I'm writing about Venice in September 2019. I decided the only way to cope with COVID was to write a book that was right before everything got locked down. So those are my current books. It's doing well. One thing that I have noticed that does help is that I have been promoting it. I published it myself. I've been promoting it using various promotional outlets. And let me give you a slide on that just so you guys can see it. There's a lot of direct newsletters that promote books for discounts. So if you have, let's say my book is normally for the ebook is $3.99. So I can use one of these newsletters like Book Gorilla, Books Butterfly, the Fussy Librarian is not on there, but yes, she is. Fussy Librarian, Goodreads, which is owned by Amazon. They have a program you can use to promote your book. And I put the book on sale through my Amazon account. And then I fire it off to, all these newsletters cost money. So I try to spend about $100 to get the news out. And I see a considerable jump in, I think the last promotion I ran, I got 3,000 downloads.
Wow.
So it did well. So that's something that is, I mentioned, I didn't mention it within the actual class because it was about promotion, it's about social media and connection. This is just flat out promotion, but it can really work.
I just have a quick question popping up in the chat from Mila. It says she's using the code, but the website still wants her credit card.
Go ahead and do that, and I bet you it comes out 0. So it might be a glitch in our cover page.
Wonderful.
If not, Mila, just call me and I'll fix it for you.
Wonderful. Well, it is just about 4 o'clock, so I am going to turn the microphone on over to Ingrid and just thank you so much, Catharine, for this wealth of information and so much good stuff in here. I learned a lot, so thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure. Of course, I love doing this. And then I'll be back because I've got a 4:30 critique class. But everybody else, have a good evening, and we'll see you all tomorrow morning.